Linda placed the lab access logs on the table. Just one page. Isabel's face, that confident, naturally gifted face I'd funded through college, went completely white. And me, for the first time in 18 months, I smiled. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, because you need to understand how we got here. How the sister I paid $220,000 to educate tried to steal my patent. And how university bureaucracy and forensic science handed me the most satisfying victory of my life. My name is Sophia Turner. I'm 32 years old, and 3 weeks ago I graduated from State University with a mechanical engineering degree. That's 14 years after my sister Isabel graduated from the same school. 14 years. That's longer than some PhD programs, longer than most people stay at one job, and definitely longer than my patience should have lasted. But I'm a determined woman. I get it from working 2 jobs for 10 years straight. I met the engineering program when I was 28. Late start. Not because I was lazy, but because I was practical and motivated and really, really needed to fund my sister's education first. From age 22 to 32, I worked at a diner and an electronics store. Waitress shift, retail shift, repeat. 5:30 a.m. at the diner for breakfast rush, 3 p.m. at electronics store until close. 6 days a week for 10 years. My parents had their reasons. Isabel is the naturally gifted one, Mom said when I was 18. She's going to do something special with engineering. You're a hard worker, Sophia. That's valuable too. Support your sister's talent. Translation, you're good enough to pay for the brilliant one's education, but not good enough to get it yourself. At least not yet. So I did. $45,000 a year tuition at State. 4 years. Plus housing, $15,000. Books and lab fees, another $5,000 annually. I paid approximately $220,000 total while taking night classes at community college when I could afford them. When I was 22, Isabel got accepted to State and needed help with her first tuition payment. I'd been saving for my own education. I gave her the money. When she needed a new laptop for engineering software her sophomore year, $3,000, I picked up extra weekend shifts. When she wanted to join a summer research program with unpaid housing, I turned down an assistant manager promotion at the electronics store to keep my schedule flexible for her needs. Isabel graduated summa cum laude, got a job at TechCore Solutions, a major engineering firm making $68,000 a year right out of school. Meanwhile, I kept waitressing and selling electronics, building up my savings dollar by dollar, finally enrolling full-time at State when I was 28. 4 more years of balancing part-time work with full-time engineering coursework. 20 credit semesters while working 20 hours a week at the electronics store because I still needed to pay rent and buy food. Study sessions that ran until 2 a.m., lab work that started at 6 a.m., rinse and repeat for 4 straight years. But I made it. At 32, I graduated with my mechanical engineering degree. My capstone project was a low-cost water purification device using a novel membrane filtration system I developed over 18 months of research. The concept was elegant, a multi-stage filtration process using locally sourced materials that could purify contaminated water for under $50 per unit. Revolutionary for developing regions where clean water infrastructure didn't exist and expensive commercial filters were financially impossible. I'd tested it, refined it, proven it worked. 2 years of my life poured into that device. I presented it at the University Showcase, the annual event where graduating engineers show their capstone projects to faculty and industry recruiters. An Aquatech Industries recruiter approached me 20 minutes after my presentation. They offered me $120,000 a year as lead development engineer to commercialize the device, lead a team to bring it to market, make it real. After 14 years of sacrifice, after being called just the hard worker while my sister was called the genius, after paying $220,000 to fund someone else's dream, this was finally my moment. The patent application was filed under my name through the university's tech transfer office. Everything official, everything documented, everything real. 2 weeks later, Isabel called. She wanted to celebrate the amazing news. She drove 3 hours to visit my tiny studio apartment. Barely room to turn around, but it was mine. We sat on my secondhand couch with cheap wine, $15 for both bottles because that's what I could afford. She asked about the job, about the device, about my plans. "I'm so proud of you," she said. "You worked so hard for this. I always knew you'd make it eventually." Eventually. After paying for her to make it first. I showed her everything. The prototype on my desk, the patent application documents spread out next to my laptop, my technical drawings with calculations and notes. She asked detailed questions. How does the membrane filtration work? What materials did I use? Who was my advisor? I explained it all because she was my sister, my engineering sister, who'd understand the technical beauty of the design. I handed her the prototype, walked her through the filtration process, the flow rate, the cost analysis. Gave her the complete technical breakdown while she nodded and asked more questions. At one point, I went to the bathroom. When I came back, she was looking at my drawings on the desk, phone in her hand. "These are really detailed," she said. "I thought nothing of it. Family, right?" 3 weeks after her visit, I received a certified letter from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Patent dispute filed by Isabel Turner alleging prior invention. My sister had filed a counterclaim stating she had developed this exact water purification device 5 years ago during her senior year at State University, that I had stolen her design. She provided evidence, sketches allegedly from 2019, written descriptions matching my patent application word for word, a witness statement from Derek Morrison, a college classmate, claiming he'd seen Isabel working on this design back in 2019. I sat on my apartment floor holding that letter, reading it over and over, trying to make the words make sense. 10 years of working 2 jobs, breakfast shift at the diner, and closing shift at the electronics store. $220,000 I'd paid for her education while being called just the hard worker. She repaid me by committing fraud to steal my invention. Family loyalty. Romance, right? The next day, Aquatech's HR department called. "We're placing you on administrative leave pending patent dispute resolution," they said. "Your start date is postponed indefinitely." The $120,000 job was frozen. My entire future on hold because my sister claimed she'd invented something she'd never worked on. That week, the regional engineering conference was happening in the city. I'd planned to attend as a new graduate celebrating my job offer. Instead, I bought a ticket and sat in an audience of 500 engineers, watching my sister present her innovation. My water purification device. She stood on that stage using my exact designs, my data, my testing results. Isabel positioned herself as the inventor, the brilliant engineer solving the global water crisis. I watched her steal my life's work in front of the entire professional community. The local engineering scene started splitting into camps. Some colleagues from my program knew my work ethic, had seen me in the lab at 6 a.m. and midnight, supported me without question. But others looked at credentials on paper. Isabel had the prestigious degree from State as an undergraduate, graduated 8 years ago. I went to community college first, took the long path. She had an 8-year career at a major engineering firm, looked established and experienced. I just graduated 3 weeks ago, still had that new engineer smell. She'd presented at a regional conference in front of 500 people. Must be legitimate, right? Rumors spread fast. Maybe Sophia saw Isabel's old college project years ago when visiting her at State. Maybe she saw drawings or notes and her subconscious stored them. Maybe she honestly didn't realize she was copying someone else's work. Maybe the hard worker isn't as original as she thinks. I heard these whispers through mutual connections. Heard them at industry meetups I'd attended before the dispute. Saw the sidelong glances, the careful conversations that stopped when I walked into rooms. Half the engineering community thought I was a fraud who'd stolen my sister's invention. The other half wasn't sure what to think, but didn't want to get involved in family drama. Nobody wanted to take a side until the patent office ruled. My parents called. "Sophia, sweetie," Mom said, her voice gentle like she was calming someone unstable. "Maybe you saw Isabel's drawings years ago. Maybe your brain remembered them and you didn't realize where the idea came from. No question about truth, no investigation, just immediate assumption that Isabel was right and I was confused. 32 years of being the dependable one, and they still chose the genius over me. When I was 10, I won second place in the regional science fair for a water conservation project. That same week, Isabel got a B+ on a math test. My parents took her to dinner to celebrate. The naturally gifted one was excelling. I asked about my science fair award. "You worked hard for that," Dad said, "but Isabel has natural talent. When talent shows itself, we need to encourage it." I learned early that working hard meant less than being naturally smart. I called the university tech transfer office. They said patent disputes require legal representation. We can provide documentation, but you need an IP attorney. Cost thousands of dollars. I had $5,000 in savings, everything I had left after paying for school and living expenses. I hired Linda Ramirez, an IP attorney specializing in patent disputes. Cost me $5,000, everything I had left. Sharp, methodical, 50 years old with 30 years of IP law experience, no tolerance for nonsense. First meeting in her downtown office with law books lining the walls, she asked me to walk through my development process. Every step, every email, every person who saw my work, every document that proved this was mine. I provided 18 months of emails with my capstone advisor, Professor James Fletcher. 237 emails discussing the device development from initial concept through final prototype. Lab notebooks with dated entries showing my experimental process, materials testing, design iterations. University presentation materials from 3 interim reviews where I presented my progress to faculty panels. Peer review documents from classmates who'd seen my work during our senior project showcase. 2 years of continuous documented development with my name on everything, time-stamped, witnessed, verified by the university. "You have a strong case," Linda said, "but let's see what she's got." Linda requested Isabel's evidence through the patent office discovery process. 2 weeks later, a package arrived. When we opened it, I understood why my sister thought she could win. The sketches looked old, allegedly dated 2019, showing the device design exactly. The handwritten notes described the filtration concept in detail. Derek Morrison's witness statement swore he'd seen Isabel working on water purification during their senior year. At first glance, it looked bad. "What if I can't prove she's lying?" I asked Linda. "Then we make the university prove she's telling the truth," Linda said. She contacted State University Records Office requesting 3 things: lab access logs for Advanced Materials Lab, where membrane filtration research happens, Isabel's senior year transcript and capstone project records, her professor's records and advisement notes from 2018 to 2019. 2 weeks of waiting, 14 days of second-guessing everything. My parents' words kept replaying in my head. "Maybe you saw Isabel's drawings years ago. Maybe your brain remembered them." What if they were right? What if I had somehow absorbed her idea without realizing? I barely slept. I kept going over my development process, trying to remember if I'd ever seen anything like this before. If maybe I'd visited Isabel years ago and seen some sketch, some note, anything. Was it completely mine? Was I absolutely sure? The doubt my parents planted was poison. The university provided data on a Thursday afternoon. Linda called me. "Come to my office," she said. "Now." Linda called me to her office. "Sit down," she said. Her expression was neutral. I couldn't tell if the news was good or bad. She opened a folder and turned it toward me. Lab access logs for Advanced Materials Lab, academic years 2018 through 2024. Every student ID swipe with timestamps. My ID from 2022 to 2024, 247 entries. I practically lived in that lab. Isabel's ID during her senior year 2018 to 2019. 0 entries. Not one. She never set foot in the lab where this research happens. Linda flipped to the next page. Isabel's transcript, senior year coursework, HVAC systems design. Heating and cooling. No courses in water treatment or membrane technology. Her capstone project titled Efficiency Improvements for Campus HVAC Systems. Not water, not filtration, heating, and air conditioning. I stared at that number. 0. The naturally gifted engineer who supposedly invented this revolutionary device 5 years ago never entered the lab where membrane filtration research occurs. Not once. Not one single time in an entire academic year. My ID showed 247 entries over 2 years. Early mornings, late nights, weekends. I'd practically lived in that lab developing this device. Isabel had 0. Linda made 1 call on speaker. Dr. Patricia Wong answered. Isabel's capstone advisor from 2019, an HVAC specialist who'd supervised Isabel's senior project. Dr. Wong, did Isabel Turner ever work on water purification research during her time as your advisee? No, Dr. Wong said. Her voice was certain. Isabel's entire senior project focused on heating and cooling systems for campus buildings, HVAC efficiency optimization. She never mentioned water treatment or filtration. That's not my area of expertise. I would remember if she'd asked about it. I sat there in Linda's office reading those records, understanding the full picture. Isabel had never worked on water purification. Her entire claim was a lie, but her sketches matched my design exactly, too exactly. Then it hit me. The apartment visit. She'd been alone with my drawings when I was in the bathroom, her phone in her hand when I came back. "These are really detailed," she'd said. She'd photographed everything that day. My prototype, my patent documents, my technical drawings. Then she'd gone home and copied them, tried to backdate everything to 2019, created an entire fake college project that directly contradicted her actual university records. The genius had forgotten that universities keep detailed logs of everything. Student ID swipes, course registrations, capstone project filings, advisor meetings, all documented, all time-stamped, all impossible to fake. For the first time since receiving that patent office letter, I felt something other than panic. I felt certainty. The hard worker had documentation, the genius had lies, but the sketches still bothered me. They looked old, aged paper, weathered ink, dated 2019 in handwriting that looked like Isabel's. If the university records proved she never worked on this, how did she create drawings that appeared 5 years old? Linda hired forensic document examiner Dr. Raymond Cole. Cost another $1,500 I didn't have. Linda fronted it and added it to my bill. His report arrived 2 weeks later. Ink composition matched pens manufactured starting in 2023. They didn't exist in 2019. Paper showed no aging. Handwriting matched Isabel's current style with no age progression over years. Conclusion: documents created within the past 3 months. She'd photocopied my drawings, redrawn them, tried to age them. Not even good fraud, just lazy fraud from someone who thought being called talented her whole life meant she didn't need to be careful. Linda investigated Derek Morrison, the witness who'd sworn under penalty of perjury that he'd seen Isabel working on water purification in 2019. Quick social media search revealed everything we needed. Derek and Isabel dated from 2018 to 2020. Relationship photos, anniversary posts, couple selfies, the eventual breakup drama complete with cryptic subtweets, all public on Facebook and Instagram. They were romantically involved exactly during the period he claimed to have witnessed her inventing my device. Linda deposed him for the patent case. Formal deposition under oath with court reporter documenting every word. "Mr. Morrison, what was your relationship with Ms. Isabel Turner during 2019? Derek shifted in his seat. "We were dating." "So, you're providing testimony about alleged work you saw your girlfriend doing while you were in a romantic relationship with her?" "I mean, yes, but I really did see..." "Did Ms. Isabel Turner ask you to provide this witness statement for her patent counterclaim?" Long pause. "She said she needed someone who remembered her project." Credibility destroyed. A biased witness providing testimony for his ex-girlfriend isn't worth the paper it's printed on. Finally, Linda obtained Isabel's employment records from TechCore Solutions through the discovery process. Companies have to turn over relevant personnel files in legal proceedings. I'd assumed my naturally gifted sister was thriving in her 8-year engineering career. The reality painted a different picture. Despite 8 years at the company, she was still junior engineer level 2, entry-level position. Salary $68,000, barely above starting wages. She'd been passed over for promotion 4 times in 8 years. Her performance reviews, supposed to be confidential but now part of legal discovery, mentioned recurring themes: lax initiative in complex projects, struggles with advanced problem solving, difficulty working independently without supervision. She wasn't the brilliant engineer our parents had always claimed she was. She was mediocre at best, coasting on a prestigious degree while never actually excelling at the work. The financial records showed more. Credit card debt, $35,000 accumulated from lifestyle spending she couldn't afford on her salary. Car lease she was behind on payments for. Apartment rent that ate most of her take-home pay. When she saw my $120,000 offer, saw my revolutionary invention, saw the hard worker little sister about to surpass the genius, her ego and financial desperation collided into one terrible decision: commit fraud, steal the patent, solve all her problems at once. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, please hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I read every single comment. Thank you. Linda compiled everything into 3 folders. Lab access logs proving Isabel never entered the research facility, university transcripts proving her coursework was unrelated, forensic analysis proving her sketches were recent forgeries, witness credibility destroyed, professor testimony confirming my 18-month development, employment records showing motive. The patent hearing was scheduled for week 18. U.S. Patent and Trademark Office hearing room, government issue furniture and fluorescent lights that made everything look washed out and institutional. Patent examiner Richard Hayes presiding, a man in his 50s who'd probably seen every type of IP dispute imaginable. Isabel arrived with her attorney Donald Pierce. She wore a navy suit, professional and polished, her hair pulled back neatly, confident smile firmly in place. She looked like someone who'd been called naturally gifted her whole life and believed it. She looked at me once when she sat down at the opposite table. I didn't look away. I wanted her to see my face, to know I wasn't the compliant big sister who paid her bills anymore. Linda arranged 3 folders on our table. Everything organized, labeled, ready to systematically dismantle my sister's fraud. I'd spent $5,000, my entire savings, on this moment. 18 months of development, 14 years of sacrifice, all coming down to these folders. Isabel had spent nothing except the time it took to photograph my drawings and lie. Hayes reviewed the case file briefly, reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked up. Turner versus Turner regarding water purification device patent application. Ms. Isabel Turner claims prior invention during her 2019 senior year at State University. Ms. Sophia Turner claims original invention developed 2022 to 2024 during her capstone project. Both parties have submitted evidence. Let's proceed. He looked at Linda. Present your evidence. Linda stood. She didn't rush. Ms. Sophia Turner's student ID accessed Advanced Materials Lab 247 times over 2 years. Ms. Isabel Turner's ID shows 0 access during her entire time at State University. Isabel's attorney tried arguing lab logs could have errors. Maybe she worked from home. Linda smiled. Let's examine her coursework then. Second folder. Ms. Isabel's university transcripts show HVAC systems focus, 0 classes in water treatment or membrane technology. Linda placed the transcript in front of Hayes. Her senior capstone project was titled Efficiency Improvements for Campus HVAC Systems, confirmed by her advisor Dr. Patricia Wong. Not water purification, not filtration, heating, and air conditioning for buildings. I watched Donald Pierce shuffle papers, lean toward Isabel, whisper urgently. Isabel's confident expression was cracking around the edges. She'd walked in thinking her prestigious degree and 8-year career would outweigh my community college background. She'd forgotten that fraud leaves a paper trail. Ms. Turner could have developed the concept at home, Donald tried, grasping for any argument. Outside university facilities, the lack of lab access doesn't definitively prove she didn't invent the device. Hayes looked at him over his reading glasses. How do you explain her coursework and capstone project being entirely unrelated to water purification? Donald had no answer. Silence hung in the room. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall, hear papers rustling, hear Isabel's breathing getting faster. Linda opened the 3rd folder. Forensic Document Analysis by Dr. Raymond Cole. She placed the report in front of Hayes. Ms. Isabel's sketches, allegedly dated 2019, were created within the past 3 months using ink from pens manufactured starting in 2023. These pens did not exist in 2019. The paper shows no aging consistent with 5-year-old documents. The handwriting shows no age progression that would naturally occur over years. Hayes leaned forward, studying the forensic report carefully, reading Dr. Cole's conclusions line by line. Additionally, Linda continued, the witness Derek Morrison, who claims to have seen Ms. Isabel working on this project in 2019, is her ex-boyfriend from exactly that period. They dated from 2018 to 2020. His testimony is compromised by personal relationship and bias. Finally, Linda presented the last section, Dr. James Fletcher's 18 months of documented emails with Ms. Sophia showing her development process from initial concept through final prototype. Lab notebooks with dated entries verified by university timestamp. University presentation materials from 3 interim faculty reviews. Peer witness statements from classmates who observed Ms. Sophia's work during senior project showcase. 2 years of continuous, documented witness development. Hayes reviewed everything in silence. The room was completely quiet, except for the sound of pages turning. Minutes passed while he read Linda's folders page by page, cross-referencing documents, checking timestamps on lab logs against forensic reports against university transcripts. Isabel sat frozen beside her attorney. I could see her hands shaking on the table. She'd walked in confident and was now watching her fraud collapse in real time under the weight of university bureaucracy and forensic science. Finally, Hayes looked up. He removed his reading glasses slowly, looked at Isabel, then at me, then back at the evidence spread before him. "Based on overwhelming evidence," he said, his voice formal and final, "patent application is granted solely to Sophia Turner. The counterclaim filed by Isabel Turner is dismissed as fraudulent." The room went very still. I stopped breathing. Hayes continued, looking directly at my sister. "Ms. Isabel Turner, the evidence presented today shows deliberate fabrication of documents, falsification of academic history, and submission of forged materials to a federal office. This office may refer this matter to relevant authorities for investigation of fraud under federal law." Isabel's face went completely white. All the color drained from her cheeks. Her confident expression, her naturally gifted superiority, her 8 years of being praised while I worked 2 jobs funding her education, all of it collapsed. Donald Pierce put his head in his hands. He'd tried to defend the indefensible and lost. I sat perfectly still. 14 years of sacrifice, 10 years funding her education, $220,000, 32 years of being called just the hard worker. All of it vindicated in one moment by university lab logs showing 0 entries and forensic analysis of ink composition that didn't exist in 2019. That was the knife. Not Isabel's fraud, not the attempted theft. This moment, the moment the hard worker proved herself with meticulous documentation while the genius drowned in her own lies. That same day, Linda contacted the Regional Engineering Conference organizers. They issued a public statement. Isabel Turner's presentation contained fraudulent claims. True inventor is Sophia Turner. Ms. Isabel Turner is banned from future participation. Next day, Aquatech called. "After seeing how you defended your invention with methodical evidence, we're offering senior development engineer position at $135,000 plus royalties. When can you start?" 1 week after the hearing, TechCore Solutions launched an internal ethics investigation. When patent rulings become public record, companies notice. Termination letter to Isabel arrived 3 days later. Fraudulent patent claim and public misrepresentation violate company ethics standards. Employment terminated effective immediately. She was fired. In the engineering community, word spreads fast. She'd committed fraud, lost publicly, got exposed by forensic analysis and university records. She was effectively blacklisted. I started my $135,000 job at Aquatech 3 weeks after the hearing, leading a 5-person team to commercialize the device, patent secured solely in my name. 50 cents royalty per unit sold. The invention Isabel tried to steal was now generating income and building my career. 5 months later, my parents called. They'd seen the university's public statement. "We had no idea Isabel made it up," Mom said. "We just thought she's always been the engineering one." "For 10 years you told me I was just the hard worker while she was the genius," I said. "I paid $220,000 for her education while you praised her talent. When she filed fraud, you didn't even ask my side. You chose which daughter to believe. Live with that choice." "Can we start over?" Dad tried. "We're proud of you now." "You had 32 years to be proud of the hard worker. You chose to worship the genius. The genius is a fraud. The hard worker is changing the world. We're done." I blocked their numbers. 8 months later, Isabel sent an email. "Sophia, I made a terrible mistake. Can we talk? We're sisters. I need help." I forwarded it to Linda. "Document this." Never responded. 18 months after the hearing, my device launched commercially through Aquatech's partnership with international aid organizations. First-year sales, 50,000 units distributed to developing regions across sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia. Clean water access for approximately 250,000 people. My royalties that first year, $25,000 at 50 cents per unit. The invention Isabel tried to steal was now saving lives. Aquatech promoted me to principal engineer at $155,000 annual salary. They gave me a team of 12 engineers to work on next-generation filtration systems. I was invited as keynote speaker to the National Engineering Summit, 1,500 attendees from across the country. Engineering Today magazine, the industry's leading publication, featured me in their Innovation Spotlight. 30-something engineer brings clean water innovation to market after defeating Sisters patent fraud. The article detailed the patent hearing, the evidence that destroyed Isabel's claim, the forensic analysis, and university records. Isabel's name was mentioned throughout as the fraudulent claimant who attempted to steal her sister's work, public record that would follow her forever. The collapse happened exactly as you'd expect when fraud meets consequences. Within 3 months of the hearing, Isabel couldn't find engineering work. Her termination from TechCore for ethics violations, her public exposure at the patent hearing, the engineering conference ban, all of it showed up in background checks. No firm wanted to hire an engineer who'd committed patent fraud. After 6 months of unemployment and mounting debt, she found work as a technical writer at a small marketing firm, non-engineering role writing user manuals and product descriptions. Salary $45,000 annually, less than 1/3 what I earned. She'd gone from junior engineer at a major firm to writing instruction booklets. She lost her apartment when she couldn't make rent, moved back in with our parents at age 31. The naturally gifted engineer living in her childhood bedroom, eating dinners our mother cooked, while the hard worker stood on stages at national conferences, presenting innovations that provided clean water to 250,000 people. My parents saw Engineering Today with my photo. They sent a letter to my office. "We want to attend your summit speech. We're so proud," I wrote back. "Only communication in 18 months. You had 32 years to be proud. You chose to worship the genius. The genius committed fraud. The hard worker saves lives. No, you can't come. Don't contact me again." I stood on stage at National Engineering Summit, presenting my device to 2,000 engineers. Standing ovation, professional recognition earned through 14 years of sacrifice and meticulous evidence when challenged. 500 miles away, Isabel watched the live stream from her childhood bedroom. I know because a mutual acquaintance mentioned it. Watching your sister's fraud collapse under forensic analysis and university bureaucracy is like watching justice happen in slow motion. Fascinating and completely satisfying. Thank you so much for watching. More of my most gripping stories are already on your screen. Click one now and don't miss the best part. You will love it. See you in the next one.